right, 2 minutes have gone by, and this meeting will be recorded as well. So if anyone joins later, they can also come back to the recording, see what they missed. Before getting started, I just would like to introduce myself. Hi, my name is Bruno. I'll be doing the walkthrough today through the new features. Also show a little bit around for everyone that's looking at RightBack for the first time, what it does, what it brings to the table in Power BI. So with that, I'll move on to what we have to offer as of today. So I'll be presenting RightBack for Power BI, but as of today, we already have RightBack for Tableau as well, where functionality-wise, it's very similar. So if you use Tableau as well, it may be of interest for you to check out RightBack over there. But today we'll be focusing on how it can integrate with Power BI. We can see how easy it is to set it up and to quickly get it going. So one of the main things that we see with Power BI and most of these analytical tools is that they are great to help people understand their data, okay, to visualize it, to decide on it, but then to actually provide something, or if there's any use case where people will feel the need to provide a comment or provide additional context or to even just update the value. You can do that today technically if you use other tools like Power Apps or external resources that take you out of the dashboard. Then out of the box, there's nothing immediately ready, or even with, for example, translytical apps where you have to develop the backend and everything, there's always some additional layer of development that's not ready right off the box. So with RightBack, we can exactly do that. So directly on the dashboards, you can easily configure the visual, and the RightBack is a custom visual for the Power BI reports. And everything is done directly there. You set it up to connect to your database, and then it will essentially create a new table in your database for that configuration. So every configuration will have its table, allowing you to easily manage all your configurations directly from the reports. So today, besides showing you how it works, we're also going to showcase the new highlights that we can see in here. So we are currently on version 2.1 as of today, where we introduced the notification triggers. So we already had notifications on RightBack where you can individually notify people by email, but now we can also set it up so the notifications are sent after a data insert, update, or delete. We also introduced new channels for Slack and Teams, where you can place a webhook to notify a specific place on Slack or Teams. Next, we also made it more essentially towards working towards collaboration. We made RightBack show up the notified users on the timeline. Okay, so for the forms, it's now possible to easily see what data entry and people that were notified. About the editable source fields, this means that we can now directly edit one of the fields that we place on the columns, or essentially the fields that we use to configure the visual to set up the source fields. We can now edit them directly without having to create a duplicate. Of course, this doesn't actually change the source date. It still does everything on that separate table, but it's more or it's easier to get started with that new configuration right away. And finally, one highly requested feature is the standalone dataset, where you don't even need any source data to work with RightBack at all, as essentially we'll be creating new rows. I'll show all of these today, so let's jump right into Power BI to see it in place. So Starting with one of the most common ways Redpack is used is, for example, for commenting, where we can provide in this context over here a comment that will be associated. Oh, sorry about that. A comment that will be associated with a quarter and year of the current context. This means that I can easily see what's going on right away when I reach the dashboard, and I can see if there's comments for other quarters, which in this case I don't, but I can just easily come in here, log into Rightback, and you're seeing logging me in with a username and password. That's for demonstration purposes. Rightback can be set up to automatically grab your user email in a way that you can control easily who can access Rightback, as well as control their permissions within Rightback itself. And on top of that, it also keeps track of audit information, so we can easily see what changes the users are doing throughout the, the use case. So now to add my actual comment, I'll just click on Rightback and it will open up as a pop-up in this case, because we set it up like so. And this is a simple text field that we can say here. So for example, for quarter 2, it's stabilized and well, it was not the best performing quarter. So quarter 3 and 4 were much better. So I can say, for example, that Q2 was not as good as expected, and say that it does require a follow-up because we need to understand what happened. So let's escalate this to management. And we can also eventually say that it could be related with seasonality. So in addition to that, I can also notify someone by email. Okay. This was already possible before, but now on the new version, we're also going to see that showing up on the timeline, and that person will get an email with that option. So you can easily see over here the user that got notified, and then they will get an email with the contents. I'm just gonna check if I got the email so I can show. It's still not coming, so I'll just wait a little bit. If it does arrive, I'll just show in a second. Moving on to a different use case, but still in line with what we typically see. We can also do comments more specific to individual items. So on the previous case, we were doing a broad type of comment. In here, if I just want to comment on a specific item, I can click on it. For example, this one was shipped late. I can say that we need to look into this and set a priority to meet, for example. Again, I can notify by email, and then once I submit, it goes in. One thing that's also new, we now have the ability to create text fields that have multiple lines by default. Okay, so this is useful if you're expecting a lot of text to go in, but that's also configurable as well. So after I submit and refresh the data, we now see my comment showing up over there. I did forget to refresh the data in here just to show you. There you go. Now that I refreshed, we also see the reason and the comment that I just added over here. Okay, we can see the user that made it and the context of the current quarter. All right, so the email is not coming as soon as I was hoping, so I can just show that it's going to look something like this. Okay, so this is for the same use case for a given quarter. The user that gets the email will get something like this, where we can easily see their comment, if they set up a follow-up or not, or the reason for the comment that we saw. Then when I add it over here, that I can add that the follow-up, the reason, and the comment altogether. Moving on to more new stuff that we see here, and also taking the opportunity to show more functionality of the write back itself using the smart table. So the smart table is another type of write back configuration where we can set it up as a table instead of a form. So far we've seen the pop-up form and the inline. And in this case, the smart table allows us to directly display everything that's uh, on the top visual, which is just a standard Power BI table visual. I'm using write back over here to do the actual inserts and changes. I could even hide these table entirely and just use write back directly, because this way essentially I'm doing all the changes that I need on write back, and I see them on write back as well, even though they are on a separate table. And if you need to use it on other systems, you can still do it, because at the end of the day, it's just going to be a new table in your database. Okay. These changes that we do here are specific to the data, to the source data anyway. So for example, let's say that I want to change the subcategory over here of something to electronics, for example, and the unit price of these would be, for example, 150, and we don't want to discontinue it. So I'll just submit. Right back now as that change in. Okay, so we see it over here with electronics 150 and false. Now, and if I go in here and then look for that unit, let's refresh again just to be sure. And let me check over here. Let me go to desktop to see if that updated over there, just to be sure. But essentially, it should update on the source over here as well, because we have a condition over here to show the most updated values instead of the existing ones. So let me refresh the data here as well. I seem to have an issue over here with the query. Sorry about that. That's why it's not showing up. But I can actually show, for example, for this one over here, this was set as no unit price and no discontinue at all. And then we're actually changing the values directly from writeback and then doing some calculations to show the end date. So I take the opportunity now that I'm on Power BI Desktop exactly to show how this is set up. So initially we had the product info table that, as you can see, doesn't have a unit price or a to discontinue column. And then we created a write back configuration with editable source fields. So these two columns, and I can jump into the write back configuration to show how that is set up, are set as editable source field. So this means that they show up on the smart table as editable. So I can come in here and make the change. Next, I come in here to Power BI and connect to this new write back table. Okay, using in this case, I connected to a new data source, then went into transform data and actually created a merge query between the two tables. Okay, so we're going to see this one over here. It's a merge between the original product info, the product info date or table, and then the actual write back table. So going over here to the right, we're going to get the write back columns over here. And you see that's why most of them are null, because they didn't exist before at all. So I now have the updated values from write back, the user that made the change, and the respective unit price as well being updated in here. So once that's done, I reconfigure the table to read the new values, okay? And like, as you can see, the actual category and subcategory are some essentially if conditions where if they're blank on the right back side, then I'm going to show the original value. Otherwise, I'm going to actually show the updated value from the right back side. Same thing for the subcategory. and similar to the unit price as well. The discontinue is just shown directly. It's just a Boolean field, so we can just show it directly. Alternatively, if we want to submit data that's not existent or just want to add new records, we can now set up writeback with the standalone functionality. So to do that, we switch on the standalone option on the top, and then we still create the table and whatever fields we want on the columns. As you can see, I have a few predefined fields that have, in this case, the branches, the years, the quarters, and then some numeric fields to provide different types of budget. And finally, a source field that lets me know if hiring is planned for that branch, for example. Now, when that was created, this set up the smart table that we're seeing behind the scenes. And finally, I can now just add new rows of data. So I can just quickly go over here. And so I already have South Europe, East Asia, let's see, Latin America doesn't have an entry yet. I can go here, say that for Q1, 2026, we're going to have a sales budget of 60,000, production budget of 70,000, and a workforce budget of 80,000. And we're going to hire some people over there, so I'm just going to submit this information. And now, if I refresh that data source over there, I'm just going to quickly see that entry now added right there. So let me just refresh this over here, just a second. There we go. We always see everything through writeback, okay? So on writeback, because that's just now our source of data, that's what we see in here, okay? And again, on the writeback table, we can see the timestamp on when that was entered. We can always see the user that made the change. And besides that, if we still make changes in here, so let's say this was actually, instead of 80,000, it was 70. If I make this change, we still get the value directly over here. Okay, so now that's on the writeback side. But if I refresh, we are going to see that the on the writeback side, we have two lines for the same branch, but one of them has this isActive column set to false. And this is the same across all writeback use cases, okay? So we're always going to be able to see the latest information available because writeback keeps track of the history of the changes. So it doesn't actually do the change in place, okay? As you can see, we have two entries for South Europe with two different values, but only the latest one is going to be configured because that's the true one, okay? That's a behavior that is consistent across all the other writeback configurations, and we can easily get it started like that. So we've been looking at these mostly from the perspective of someone that's going to be an end user for writeback in Power BI. Okay, so of course I switched over here to a desktop, but as you saw, the experience on the service on the browser is very similar. Okay, so we get the data in here just like any other report, and we can configure writeback and use it just like any other visual. Now, to actually set it up, there's going to be this is mostly going to be for developers, okay, where they will be using typically the desktop, but of course this can also be done on the service. But to add writeback to your reports, the easiest way is essentially to get it from the app source. We get more visuals, or even if you have a file, and I'm just going to switch over here quickly to get the latest version as well. If you have a file, you can also import the file directly. So that's what I'm going to do for this case because I have a file for the demonstration. This you can also download from the app source as well if you want to have a file, or even your company can import it to the organizational visuals. So after that's imported through either of the methods, RightBack will become available over here in the visuals panel. So you can just bring it in. And by default, it gives us this instruction where you can go into the live demo directly. So that's an external link. But as soon as you add some data to it, it will go to the next step, which is actually configuring. So assuming that I want to use this map that's using the country and region, I'll just click on it, select the country and region, and now RightBack is ready to configure. For demos, if you just want to get a quick look around on how RightBack works on a public environment, you can click here. And this will automatically fill the site and instance information for our demo environment. So I'll just click on it just to show. That's what it does, okay? But I don't actually want to do that as of now. I'll just today we use my site for the webinar, and then my instance, sorry, my instance over here, which is the European one. Now that's going to ask me to log in to my instance. Oh, actually, it doesn't ask again because I was already logged in before. And then, as you can see, we get a fresh configuration screen where let's start with inline form, for example. That's going to be country forecast, for example, where I can forecast by country, and that's going to be sales forecast. That's going to be a number. Cost forecasts, for example, that's also going to be a number. Any of the numbers, we can also format them easily with numeric masks. For example, if I want it to look like the US standard, I'll just go like these, where using dot for decimal, comma for thousands, and we can easily see how it looks like. Okay, so I can apply these, and then now that says the mask, I can also have justification field that's going to be text. Let's say that I wanted to add 3 lines. And finally, if this is a final or draft, that's going to be a Boolean field with that. So with all of these, I can now just like to submit. That's going to create the table in my database. And now I get the form ready to use over here. Just make it a little bit more space. And now I can click on any country. And we can see on the right back side that it gets the selected country over here. So, and now I can provide my forecast. So let's say 50,000 over here, 100,000 or 40,000 over here. As you can see, it formats it according to the mask that I set up. And then I can provide some justifications over here, like is the approach to the modern market, for example. Okay, and for now, this is not final, so I'll just put this in false, submit, and now we have this entry on RightBack. So the natural next step would be to actually join this data pack at some point. There's a couple of ways to do this. We could just go into here and or rather into here, sorry, and get more data from our database. Okay, so in this case, we're using Postgres. We currently support multiple database technologies. I can actually quickly jump into that over here, but essentially any traditional SQL database, that's what we are going to support with RightBack. So anything that usually uses for transitional or transactional SQL operations, that's the best option for RightBack. As you always have to think that that's going to be based on user inputs. Okay, so to connect to my database, I'll actually let me do this the other way because I have the recent sources over here. When I connect to the database, we're going to see the new table that I created, which is the country forecast, which now has one entry for Finland that I did just now. So I can just load these data in. The right query is fine for now. And when we do this, we should now have that table available over here. There we go. So I can just create another visual or join it in the table visual. But just for simplicity, I'll just create another visual over here where I can have the country and the respective forecasts, as well as the justification, and if I want a final or a draft. So as you can see, we can easily get this operation going. And now that it's another source, I could easily go back to my data management, to my model and everything, and for example, do a merge query over here and configure the link. So I would link the country region from my source data with the country region from WriteBack. Left join would be perfect for this case because if I wanted to see all the other countries and then with the added new values from WriteBack, that's exactly how I would do it. And then when this is set up, of course, the rest is just setting up Power BI to have a look and feel exactly how you want it. One last thing about the new features as well that I want to show is regarding the notification triggers. So that setup is now done over here. So on the notifications section, we have this add notification option where you can have the email. If you have Slack and Teams enabled, they will also show up in here on the list, okay? But for now, I'll just open up the email. You can set up a name for a notification. You can choose the users that you want to notify. So these are the users that will get notification on submit, edit, or delete, depending on how you set it up. So if you set it up like this, it's going to be like so. Or you can even use a source field. If you have a source field, which in this case I have only the country and region, so that essentially would notify no one because this doesn't match the email addresses. But if you do have a source field that contains an email address, then you can use that as sort of a parameter to who will get the notification on that at that time. And finally, one other aspect that we have, and that's mainly if you're going to use WriteBack more like as an administrator, you're going to be seeing a lot the manager too, at least on the first iteration to get you going and set up the database connection and authentication. It's now easy to reach us through chat, where you can, if any of our agents is online, you'll be able to communicate directly with us on here. Of course, we always have our help and documentation readily available, but this is just another way to make it available for you. And if you want, you can also enable these for WriteBack itself. Now we have this enable chat with support that when enabled, these will also become available on the WriteBack configuration screen. We're not seeing it right now because as you saw, it was disabled. But yeah, that's also another possibility that we can have ready. So with that, I covered, I believe, everything that I wanted to show. Okay, so the most common use cases of WriteBack, how to quickly set it up, and as you can see, it's very straightforward to start. And if I wanted to do another use case, I'll just bring another visual in and set it up. And the key takeaway is that WriteBack, it's essentially a toolbox that lets you bring out of the box the tool that you need for that specific job. So if you need WriteBack for planning, you would do just something like similar to what I did in here, where you're going to be managing all the data through WriteBack, doing the inserts and providing that information directly on Power BI that you can then use it as well with the within Power BI itself. If you want to modify existing data, then you can just bring it in and get it ready for that as well. If you just want to provide comments or more context, that's also perfect. So if you want to have a commentary use case where write-back will be the main point of contact or the main point of interaction between the users and the dashboard, we can also see that being easily done. And, any actionable case, any operation will be compatible with write-back typically because you can adapt it to your needs. And all of these is, again, easily configurable right on your dashboards, right on your reports. And essentially, you have a complete cycle ready in a few minutes of setting it up. And that also brings us to the pricing information. So that's all publicly available on our website, and the price of the product is not per use case or per type of the dashboard that you use, report that you use. It will just be a bucket of users. It's based on user tiers, very easily very simplified, and you can use it on any number of reports and use cases across the board. So you could just have one planning use case or multiple commenting across different teams. That's a perfect case for write-back and very cost-effective as well. And with that, I think I'll just wrap it up where these all the new features that have been covered, and I showcase all the main features of write-back, how to set it up as well, which I believe on Power BI it's very important to see how easy it is to set it up, considering that we have other alternatives, of course, like the Power Apps I mentioned in the beginning, but those always take some extra steps and extra work to get you started. But then the actual data or the setup itself is very easy through write-back, and it always goes back to your data source where we can easily you can easily access it. I'm gonna jump to the Q&A. So I see that we have a few questions on the chat. Let me just go through here. Thank you for your questions. I'll just go over here through a few questions. So asking if on-with tables or it also works for other types of tables. It's not so much about the tables that you have on the sources. Okay, so write-back in here is set for a simple table because I want to select this row, and that's the information that's going through. But essentially, write-back is actually filtering this data that we see in here, because on write-back we're using the same data source that we're using on this table. So this order ID from here, that's in here, okay, will match this source over here. Okay, so this source, and that same source is being used on write-back as well. So we see the order ID is the same one being used on write-back. So by default, if you filter something on a visual, that also filters other visuals, right? So that's the important aspect on setting it up for this purpose. You're asking as well if it works on direct query without refresh, and I would say that yes, write-back does not. Write-back is not dependent on the. Sorry, write-back is not dependent on the type of connection that we have to your data source. I was using the right query with refresh exactly to show the new data alongside the existing data. But as you saw, for example, on the standalone dataset functionality, or the standalone dataset use case, we can see in here that whenever I add data through write-back, okay, it it just works. I only need to refresh after if I want to see it. And that's the same across all other write-back interactions, because write-back is always connected directly to your database. So there's no need to refresh unless you actually want to see the data in there. So that's not specifically a requirement of write-back. It's more like a requirement of the use case if you want it. Next, we're get a question of where the data resides. So for that, I'll bring up a diagram. I think it's usually easier to understand. But essentially, WriteBack as of now is a cloud product. So it is also, on our cloud infrastructure, but the actual data gets stored on your database. Even though it's a separate table, and that's how we try to illustrate it in here, this will be a table within your database. We're of course provided that you have one of these support technologies, and that's another reason why we have these separate. So you could have your data warehouse in any technology at all, or even a files or analytical databases. This will be easy to understand that you now have a separate table. That's going to be the table for write-back. Okay, so that table then, of course, can be read directly through Power BI, as that's what I showed during the demonstration. Everything is joined and shown together directly on Power BI. Or we have some customers that also do external processes, and it's of course external of write-back, so not part of the product itself, where they move the data to their destination systems if they want that. Going to the next question. So we can set up. I'm reading a question about if it is possible to authenticate you or your users, and that's I would say yes. Okay, so on the write-back manager, it is possible to set up OAuth over here. So for Power BI, or rather this one over here, for Power BI, it's possible to set up OAuth, and that's going to take your Microsoft account or your user's Microsoft account and log in against the Microsoft Entra system. And that's actually the best way to control your licenses as well. If you buy write-back through the app stores, you will later on go to your admin section of Power BI, where you can assign the write-back seats to each user individually. This way, you will be able to use your Microsoft credentials to log in on write-back as well. So the login is automatic, and you can easily control your licenses through there. Oh, and I guess that also answers the second question, or it's related. How can I control access to the write-back and if there's a row level security? So you control access exactly as I was just saying. So through their login. On write-back itself, it's also possible to control the user roles. Okay, and that limits their capabilities within write-back itself. So first, there's always the role in its the login first, then the role, and on top of that, the user can only work on the data that they can see. So if for some reason over here, let's say on the commenting, I can only see data from a certain, sorry, marker notation is the one I wanted. Let's say this ship mode was actually a country specification. If for some reason I was only assigned to this particular section and I could not see the others, then I would never be able to do that on write-back as well, because the data to me only shows that of what I can work with. So write-back will respect that aspect. So if you have your row level security in place, then the write-back user will want to be able to work on the data that they can see. So that's more like a configuration at the Power BI level rather than at the write-back level. Next, we have a question about the way the notifications are driven. If it's possible to decide who gets notified based on which keys are being touched. That's an interesting question. I would say that as of now, that's not possible. But with the notification triggers, as I showed, and I'll just log in here again to show you that with the notification triggers, it is possible to set up the notifications to be sent out based on a parameter. So that parameter would be a source field, essentially. So some type of field that we read on the right back side over here, it then becomes available to be used as a trigger. So as you can see, these fields can be used as, not as a trigger, but as the field that right back will be looking for the email. And the actual triggers are submit, edit, or delete. These are the triggers that we have as of now. But if you could elaborate a little bit more, that could also help understanding the change. And another request over here that the refresh of the other visuals happens as soon as you do the change. And unfortunately, as of now, that's currently not possible. We do have that functionality implemented, actually. We support that on Tableau, but on Power BI, as of now, we can't have a visual refreshing other visuals. Unfortunately, we can't control that aspect. But it's definitely something that as soon as it becomes possible, we have that already implemented because on Tableau we do support that functionality. All right, I think we're all out of questions. So thank you so much for all the questions. It's great to see that feedback and get to see what the users are asking. So thanks so much for that. And without further ado, I think I'm just gonna end it there. Thank you so much for taking the time to take to watch this webinar and to learn more about RightBack, how it works, how easy it is to set it up. So feel free to request a trial. We have a 30 days trial available for free. We also have the public demo environment. That's you don't even have to ask for a trial. You can just play around with it. So there's multiple ways you can reach us and very easy to get started. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions. So thanks again for your time. Have a nice one. Bye.